Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Well, not really, but we are for sure in for a wild ride. The Pacers beat the Cavs in 5 and the Knicks beat the Celtics in 6, gives an Eastern Conference Finals, mind you, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Semifinals that won 7 games that is sure to entertain. No one was really expecting this series, but this series is going to feed families. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like this video won't be a little biased, as many of my videos will be, but when it comes to measuring the series, I like to be as unbiased as humanly possible. So here's my take on the series. For starters, let's look at the schedule, just to set up what we're looking at. So on Wednesday in New York, we have Knicks Pacers, obviously, and then we have another game on Friday in New York. Then on Sunday, the 25th, we are going to Indiana for 2 games on Sunday and Tuesday. On Thursday, May 27th, we are back in New York. On Saturday, May 31st, we are in Indiana. And on Monday, June 2nd, we are in Indiana for Game 7 if needed. So I think I'm just going to now go and start with my prediction, going game by game, and then go into why I think that is. I think the Knicks take Game 1 purely off of the energy in that building. Then I think the Pacers take Game 2. Now, going into Indiana, I think it goes very similar. The Knicks take Game 3 and the Pacers take Game 4. And then I think it's from this point on that the Knicks take the upper hand and truly start dominating, taking Game 5 and 6 to win the series in 6. You may be thinking, but Carlos, the Pacers are playing some incredible ball right now. Why wouldn't the Pacers push it 7? I understand all of that, but we have to look at both teams as a whole and then go into the little details. While yes, the Pacers are playing some ridiculous basketball right now, their roster is essentially the same as last year, plus a Benedict Mathurin. Don't get me wrong, the Pacers have a great roster, but look at what happened last year. It took the Pacers 7 games to finish off the Knicks with no Randall, Brunson pretty much on one leg, and a hurt OG. All in all, I think the Knicks are a better team this year than they were last year, and they are healthy, which is why I think the Knicks take this series. Now again, you may be thinking, but Carlos, the Knicks and Pacers both just played injured teams. How can we really talk about that same situation last year? I get all that, but the Knicks were up 2-1 on the Celtics when Tatum got hurt, and were already up 111-104 when Tatum went down. Prayers up to JT, but I think the Knicks would have been up 3-1 regardless. Now, let's get into the small details. In order to really measure this series, we're going to have to look at what went well in the team's big games and what went wrong in the team's losses. I think for both of these teams, their losses can be attributed to just a lack of intensity out the gate. The Pacers didn't play a bad game in Game 3, and neither did the Knicks, but both just didn't have that energy from the start, and that was their downfall. I think the Knicks will have the upper hand in that category because MSG is just going to be rocking. First Eastern Conference Finals since 2000, that place is going to be a madhouse, and the Knicks are going to feed off of that. Forget energy. Let's look at the much smaller things. In my opinion, this series is not going to come down to whether Brunson or Halliburton performs better in the clutch. We know those guys are going to perform. We know they're great playoff performers. But it's really going to come down to the supporting cast, as it usually does in most of these series. While yes, Brunson and Halliburton will have their moments, the rest of the roster are going to have to perform to allow for those two to get their moment. I personally didn't watch too much of the Pacers-Cavs series, but from looking at the box score, there weren't really any outstanding performers in Pacers wins besides Game 5 from Halliburton. In order for the Pacers to be successful, they need all 5 of their starters to have 15-plus points, as in many of their wins, their starters had around 20 points, and then, there was no really one outstanding performer, but they all kind of had a pretty good game overall. Now looking at the Knicks, it seems that whenever Cat has a good 15 points and maybe 12 boards, and OG gets his silent 20-plus, the Knicks seem to find themselves ahead. For the Knicks, these two need to perform. I get Brunson is great, but we cannot just rely on Brunson to do everything for this team, as I believe that OG and Cat are the X factors when it comes to wins and losses. You can even look at Game 6 against Boston. Cat, had a good game, had a double-double. OG had a good 25 points, I believe, and they were up by 40 points. I'm not saying that's going to happen against the Pacers, but it just goes towards showing that when OG has a solid point total and Cat plays pretty good, the Knicks play really well, and they typically win in that situation. Secondly, The Knicks need to play aggressive defense like we saw in the second half of games 1 and 2 against Boston, as well as in the early stages of the Game 6 blowout. Tom Thibodeau teams thrive when they play good defense, and the Knicks need that. That's how they're going to get their wins. That's how they were able to steal the first 2 games in Boston, was on that defense. Michael had some great defensive possessions. But obviously, we need the whole team to be good on defense because the Pacers are a really good roster. I personally think the Pacers are deeper than the Knicks, but I think the Knicks just have a better top half of the roster to, push them through. All in all, I think this is going to be an amazing series with all the games being very close. Again, in close games, I feel the Knicks have the upper hand. Jalen Brunson, Captain Clutch. But this is hopefully going to be an all-time great series, and I cannot wait for it to get started on Wednesday.